Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining. This is Michelle Savage with XBRL US, and you're here for our webinar on EDGAR Next Enrollment, Lessons Learned and Special Situations. I'm going to walk you through the agenda and introduce you to our speakers. But first, just a few logistical points. If you have any problems with audio or any other kind of technical issues as we go through the presentation, please send us an email at support@xbrl.us. That's support@xbrl.us, and we'll do our best to get you back online. For our program today, we're going to start with enrollment, and that's going to be led off by Nikki Berteau. Nikki is Sales Engineer and EDGAR Next Lead of Disclosure Solutions at Broadridge Financial Solutions. She's going to be followed by a discussion of delegation from Angela McTeer, who is Business Requirements Analyst at Donnelly Financial Solutions. And then finally, we're going to focus on tips and lessons learned from Jennifer Froberg, Senior Product Specialist at Topan Merrill. So we're very happy to have all of you with us today, and also very happy to have our speakers who have a huge wealth of experience between them all. And first, I'm going to kick off, and I'm going to turn it over to Nikki to talk about enrollment. Nikki.
Thank you very much, Michelle. So welcome, everyone. First, I'd like to begin by speaking about the EDGAR Next enrollment process. Remember that enrollment is mandatory for all filers. And no enrollment means no EDGAR access starting September 15th, 2025 at EDGAR Open, 6 a.m. Eastern. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so we have prepared an enrollment checklist here to assist you in the process. This is going to outline the key steps that you will need to successfully enroll in EDGAR Next. The process really begins with verifying all of your CIKs that are in scope. Then you're going to identify their accompanying CCCs and passphrases, both of which needs to be both valid and current. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And this checklist, it's really here to help you gather these necessary credentials, designate account administrators, understand your delegation options, and then completing all of these steps in advance, it'll really help streamline the entire process and avoid any unnecessary delays. So we're going to go through each one of these in detail, starting with confirming your existing EDGAR credentials. So before beginning enrollment, it's critical to verify your EDGAR access codes. You want to first start by verifying the CIK. So the CIK is the central, it stands for Central Index Key. It's unique. It's a permanent identifier for each filer's EDGAR account, and it is publicly available. So all active CIKs in your organizational structure must be enrolled in EDGAR Next in order to continue making submissions for those entities. If you're unsure of your EDGAR CIK, you can always look it up using the SEC's EDGAR Company Search tool or their CIK lookup tool. And I also just want to note here that if you are a broker-dealer, some of these updates needs to be made in FINRA's web CRD system. The links are here, available here in this slide. Next slide, please. Okay, next, you're going to now need to confirm your CCC. So you have your CIKs identified. Next step is to confirm your CCC. The CCC is the CIK confirmation code, and it's used with the CIK for submissions, your filings, and for any data updates in the EDGAR system. It's 8 characters in length and includes 1 number and a special character, and it's case sensitive. So just keeping all of those parameters in mind. So if you happen to misplace your CCC or you unfortunately forgot it, you will need to generate a new one along with your password and PMAC. So instructions are available for generating new codes on the SEC's website, and I've placed those links here for you as well. Next slide, please. So then once you've confirmed your CIK and CCC, you will next need to validate your passphrase. Now, the passphrase was created during your EDGAR access setup. It's 8 characters and it includes at least one number and a special character. It is also case sensitive and never expires. It is also considered very highly sensitive and should already be under strict control. Both the CCC and the passphrase, as I mentioned, need to be both valid and current. So if your CCC or passphrase has been lost or hasn't been reset since September 20th, 2019, it must be reset before enrollment. So this is a critical note for everyone. You want to just check if you have not reset that passphrase since September 20th, 2019, or the CCC. And if you have not, you will need to reset it. So ensuring that all of these credentials are up to date, this will help streamline that enrollment process when you begin. Next slide, please. Okay, so the next step in the process is focused on designating your account administrators. So you've got your codes in order. Next, you want to identify who's going to administer your EDGAR Next accounts. So the designation of account administrators, the EDGAR Next requires a minimum of 2 account administrators to be designated for each company CIK. Technically, in the rule, you can have 1 account administrator designated for individuals or single member entities. But we do highly recommend that your minimum should be 2 account administrators for any CIK. So 2 account administrators, and then you want to identify these individuals. These will be the folks who will be responsible for managing the EDGAR accounts. They have a lot of permissions here in your EDGAR accounts, like confirming users, other administrators, and the general filer information, the EDGAR confirmation that's required on the EDGAR Next dashboard. So they just have quite a bit of permissions inside of your EDGAR Next account. Oh, and also delegating filing authority. So just some of those core functions are only available to the account administrator. So to set up the account administrator, you want to make sure you have some of these details listed here, or all of these details listed here. The business email address for the individual, the full name, first and last name, the business address, including city, state, postal code, the business phone number, and the employer information, if that information, or if it's different from the actual filing entity that you're setting up that account administrator for. So once you've designated these account administrators, they will be responsible for managing, as I mentioned, user roles, delegations, and then those annual confirmations. So it's important to choose your administrators who are familiar with not only your organization's SEC filing requirements, but also with EDGAR Next. Next slide, please. Okay, next step in the process is to identify your annual confirmation date. The requirement here is to identify the confirmation date, the date that you will, as an account administrator, that you'll verify and confirm the company information. So on an annual basis, this confirmation is required. You'll select one of the 4 dates you see listed here. So March 31, June 30th, September 30th, or December 31st. So I want to note here that all information on that EDGAR account, on each and every EDGAR account or CIK, needs to be confirmed. So you want to just make sure you have a process in place for this to to review all of your delegated filers, all of your account administrators and their information, all users and their information, all technical administrators and their information, and of course the actual CIK filing entities information. So the SEC provides also a 3-month grace period for confirmation delays. And during that time, submissions can continue. So they give, just to repeat, they give a 3-month grace period for delays in confirmation where you can still submit filings to EDGAR. Filers will receive reminders 6 weeks, 3 weeks, and daily for 5 days before that deadline. And then failure to confirm by this date results in your account being deactivated. And that would now require, in order to continue filing, you would have to submit a new Form ID to reinstate access. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, next, another aspect or part of the process to enroll is to identify whether the CIK or EDGAR account is a single member entity. So if the company operates as a single member EDGAR account, this can be, for example, like your individuals, the corresponding CIK must be identified as a single member entity. So this classification, it ensures that the enrollment process is completed correctly. You will need to confirm if the CIK, you will need to make this confirmation when you're actually going through the enrollment process. So a single individual or single member entity is, for example, a sole equity holder, a director, or an officer, or someone who represents a position holding similar activities to a director or officer, okay? So just keep in mind that you'll need to designate each account at enrollment if they are a single member entity. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so now we walked through the core steps, all of the information you'll need in order to actually enroll an entity into or CIK into EDGAR Next. The next critical step is to obtain login.gov credentials. So login.gov is required for any access to EDGAR. So any user, any individual who wants access to EDGAR, you need to have or obtain login.gov credentials. So all of those account administrators that you added, they all need to have login.gov credentials. So you'll go to visit login.gov, you'll create an account, you must implement multi-factor authentication. You'll also get an email verification. You'll complete the authentication, and then you will confirm your account. Okay, so very critical here. This is your access point. This is how you will be able to access EDGAR Next. This is a requirement for all account administrators, all users, all technical administrators, anyone who wants access to EDGAR. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so that's EDGAR, that login.gov site. Once you've got access, you've implemented multi-factor authentication, now you can access the EDGAR Filer Management website. So this is where you will sign in, you'll enter your login.gov email address and password. And I should also note that login.gov email address, that should, when you sign up, we do recommend that that's your company email address. You might be familiar with login.gov, even just from a personal note, having access it for any other governmental sites. But you'd want to use your company email address if you can here. Also, you will go through multi-factor authentication again, and then you will be able to access the EDGAR dashboard. Next slide, please. Okay, so once you are in the EDGAR Filer Management, this is your EDGAR Next dashboard, right? This is where you're actually going to walk through the steps that we just prepared for to enroll a CIK into EDGAR Next. So your first step here is to select Enroll in EDGAR Next. You'll see it at the bottom of your window inside of the dashboard. Next slide, please. And we're just going to walk through the actual enrollment steps in the EDGAR Next dashboard. So next, once you've selected Enroll in EDGAR Next, you'll now select to perform a manual enrollment. You also have the option for bulk enrollment, but Angela will be discussing that a little bit later. So you'll select manual enrollment here to enroll a single CIK into EDGAR Next. You'll enter the filer's CIK and the current CCC and that current passphrase. And then you'll select Verify Entity. So you want to make sure that the information that is displayed on the screen matches the filer that you're actually enrolling. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, so now you've enrolled the filer. The next step is to identify whether that filer, that CIK, is a single member entity. So here you'll select yes or no to indicate whether it's a single member company, and you just need to confirm if the CIK represents that single individual who acts as the sole equity holder, director, or officer. Okay, next slide. Okay, so next step in the process is to identify or select your annual confirmation date. So remember, you have 4 options to choose from: March 31, June 30th, September 30th, and December 31st. So in terms of which date you select here, you really just you want to make sure you're selecting a date that works with your capacity, right? Make sure you have availability to jump in and perform this annual confirmation. And again, it's one of your account administrators that would need to perform the actual confirmation in the EDGAR Next dashboard. Next slide, please. Okay, so now in the EDGAR Next dashboard, you're going to include or assign each of your account administrators. So here, this is where you're going to complete all of their details: their full name, email address, business address, phone number, right? They all need to be fully identified here at this step. And you will have 2 account administrators that would need to be enrolled with that entity, right? At enrollment, you have 2 account administrators. We're going to recommend 2, even for those single member entities. You get up to 20 account administrators, but at enrollment, you're only going to enroll with 2. Okay, next slide, please. Okay. Next step in the enrollment process is where you can select if you would like to allow delegation requests. So here you can either select yes if you want delegation requests sent to you. So that's, for example, if another CIK wants to request delegated filing authority from your CIK, that would mean that you are just going to be sent those requests. You can say no here if you want to deauthorize that. So just want to you want to just basically determine whether you want to simply allow those requests to come in or if you would prefer them to be blocked. Okay, next slide. Okay, so now once all of the required fields are complete, you can now select Enroll Now, and a notification is actually going to pop up in the top left right-hand corner of your screen, and that will indicate that you have successfully enrolled in EDGAR Next. You'll also get the account administrators and that EDGAR point of contact, who, by the way, is the #1 listed account administrator. They will all get an email notification that you have successfully enrolled in EDGAR Next. Next slide, please. Okay, so now I would like to, now that we've kind of walked through all of the enrollment steps, we covered that checklist, walk through each of those points in detail. I'd like to now share some of what we have, some real world lessons that we've learned from some of the early adopters. So many of the early adopters they've really shown us some lessons. And one of those critical lessons is that it's important to prepare early. So the organizations that started preparing early, they had a much smoother transition. We see that many filers have underestimated the time that is going to be needed to prepare for enrollment. Also, it's important to note that when you're defining or you're preparing for enrollment, addressing those codes is where we see delays in the process, where you need to make sure that the CCCs and the passphrases are, one, available, two, valid, and current. Also, login.gov, another lesson learned here is that delivery can be delayed sometimes when you're using the SMS messaging option for your MFA authentication. So just something to keep in mind there. We have seen some delays there. Also, defining your scope. So this is a critical part of this process. You want to identify all CIKs in your organizational structure that needs to be enrolled so you can continue filing for those CIKs. EDGAR is not limited to just the issuing entity. You want to identify your parent company or holding company, any registered subsidiaries, registered guarantors, all directors and officers, affiliates, holders of more than 5% stock, I'm not speaking of the larger institutional investors, but maybe the smaller non-institutional. Also, all trust needs to be enrolled, registered stock option plans. So really want to make sure you're aware of the scope that needs to be involved here or defined. Next, internal coordination is very critical. So you want to make sure you're coordinating with your legal, compliance, and finance teams. Everyone should be fully trained up on EDGAR Next, understand their roles if they are serving as account administrators or users or technical administrators. You want to design a continuity plan where you cross-train staff, right? Document your procedures, establish backups for any of these critical roles like the account administrators. You want to plan for coverage during EDGAR hours, right? Your account admins need to be available throughout the EDGAR hours, which right before EDGAR open at 6 a.m. Eastern to 10 p.m. Eastern. And you also, this is actually an important piece of this as well, is to submit some test filings. When you're in EDGAR Next, you can, submit some test filings and really start to practice using the new system, right? With your tokens involved, for example. Next slide, please. Okay, so here just want to also highlight some common pitfalls we have identified. So first up, training all staff. So you really want to make sure that all of your colleagues that are involved in EDGAR Next understand their roles, understand EDGAR Next, leverage the SEC's resources. They have a wealth of information on the SEC site that I have provided a link here to. That you can leverage to dive into the ruling and what's required of you. And then practice, leverage the EDGAR Next beta. Before you get into enrollment, you can leverage the EDGAR Next beta to kind of just navigate through the process. Also, when you want to make sure on the delegation that after you complete the enrollment, it's very important that you delegate filers immediately. And Angela's going to walk through that step with us. But it's very important that you delegate your filing authority. It's not directly part of the enrollment process. After you're enrolled, the account administrator goes in and delegates filing authority. So it's very important that you not miss that step in the process. You want to coordinate with your other teams to make sure, with all of your teams, to make sure that you identify all of your filing agents or any other entity that is authorized to file on your behalf. And then also just keep in mind, I mentioned coverage before. Delegation may be required outside of the normal business hours. So it's very critical that you have a resource as an account administrator that will delegate filing authority outside of those normal business hours. So, but within obviously the EDGAR hours, because EDGAR Next Dashboard is only available during EDGAR business hours, 6 a.m. Eastern to 10 p.m. Eastern. Watch out for those invalid codes, right? Validate and make sure that the CCCs and passphrase are current. And make sure you're not submitting a Form ID because you maybe have an outdated passphrase, right? If you have a valid CCC and or you have access to your current EDGAR point of contact, you don't need to submit a Form ID. That should be a last resort, really ultimately only if you don't have a valid CCC. Otherwise, there's ways to assist you here. Again, and then you want to coordinate with any other boards. Let's say you have directors who sit on other public company boards. Very critical that you communicate with them before enrollment, at enrollment, and ongoing, setting up an ongoing line of communication with the other public boards. Make sure that you're in coordination with them. And just the last point here, want to make sure you're aware when you do designate an individual as an account administrator, they need to accept that designation. They need to accept the invitation, and they have 14 days to accept that invitation. So just make sure that you that's followed through with, all right? 14 days to accept that account administrator invitation. Okay, and with that, thank you very much for your time. I'm going to turn it over to Angela.
Hi, Nikki, thank you. So now we'll just go through the steps for delegations. So as Nikki stated, once you've enrolled, and if you are expecting to have another entity file on your behalf, then you will need to delegate your CIK to that other entity. Okay. Next slide, please. So first, let's look at some of the roles that can be assigned in EDGAR Next. So when you are enrolling in EDGAR Next, and you are looking to add some of your staff members, you're assigning different roles. These are the roles that are allowed. So account administrator, as Nikki mentioned, when enrolling for an operating company, it is required that you have at least 2. You have a minimum of 2. You can have up to 20 account administrators. For single filers, as mentioned, the SEC only requires that you have 1 account administrator, but it's highly suggested that you have 2. So the account administrators, they manage the filer's account on your dashboard, including adding and removing any individuals. Delegate authority to file to other EDGAR accounts, and also perform the annual confirmation and generate or create custom CCCs. So users, those are those persons who, once you have enrolled in your account administrator, can go in and assign persons to file on your behalf. This is different from delegating to a separate entity. So you may have persons within your company who are filing on your behalf, and they can be assigned as a user under your account. You can have up to 500 users. Technical administrators, so those are the persons who are managing your API tokens. Technical administrators can only manage those API tokens. They cannot file on your behalf unless they have a dual role. And then delegated users. So those are the users that are assigned by the entity that you are delegating to. So if you're delegating to, let's say, your filing agent has staff under them that's filing on your behalf. They become your delegated users. They can only file on your behalf. They can view your CCC. They cannot make any edits or regenerate your codes. Okay. Now, they can go in and update your company information at your request, but that is via the filer management site. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's go through the steps of delegating. So once you are enrolled and you're in your dashboard, account administrators can delegate the authority via the dashboard to any EDGAR account. And this includes delegating to multiple filing agents. So you're going to, in your dashboard, look under My Accounts. Look for the entity that you want to delegate to. You're going to definitely identify that person's name and make sure that you have the correct account. Okay. You can delegate, unlimited delegations are allowed. So you can delegate to as many entities as you'd like. Our next slide, please. Okay, so once you located or identified the company you'd like to delegate to, you want to select Manage Delegations and Users. You'll see that option there. You're going to click on that to be able to go in and actually complete the following steps. So let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, so once you're in that site, Manage Delegations and User Groups, you'll see the tab for Add Delegations. Right? So you want to click on that tab to go in and actually select the company or go through the steps to have the company that you like to be able to file on your behalf to have rights. So you want to only delegate to any entity which you trust. So you want to make sure that the entity that you're delegating to is a company that you have some type of existing agreement with. It is a company that you are familiar with and that you know are going to be able to submit these filings on your behalf without issue. As Nikki mentioned previously, only CIKs enrolled in EDGAR Next can be a delegated filer. So when you're in this site, in that box under delegating filers, you're going to go in and actually enter the CIK and or the entity's name. Once you start typing in that CIK, or once the CIK is entered, it will populate the entity's name. If you're typing in an entity's name, it'll start to show you names of entities that could have similar names. So we highly suggest using the CIK just to ensure that you're selecting the right company, because we know that there are definitely several companies out there whose company names are very similar, or whose person's names are very similar. So you definitely want to make sure that you are confirming you have the correct company. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, so once you selected your company, you will see this page that's showing the company information. You want to make sure that you have the correct filer. Select Delegate when completed. The system is going to ask you to confirm. So at that point, you just want to make sure that you're looking over this information again, you have the correct company, and at that point, you can click on Yes, Delegate. Now, once you submit that, you will receive a message you've delegated to this company. Account managers who are assigned to that account will receive an email notification of the delegation request. They'll also receive a notification within the dashboard. When that when that invite is received, you may need to go in, make sure you accept the delegation. To actually be able to complete that process. Now, again, as Nikki mentioned, those invites go out. If a delegation, if the request is not accepted within 14 days, it will expire. Another request would have to go out again. Okay. You can cancel a delegation at any time by selecting cancel delegation. And for that action, it is not required to accept the cancellation for it to be effective. It is automatically effective once you select that option. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. Before we get to that, I do want to say that you can also do a bulk enrollment. So under that manage delegations page, there is an option there for bulk enrollment. When clicking on that option, it will allow you to, bulk delegation. So when clicking on that option, it will allow you to go in and select multiple entities and actually delegate to those entities at one time. Okay. All right, so now we want to go through the process for bulk enrollment. Bulk enrollment, somewhat similar to the manual enrollment. All of the same items are required. But bulk enrollment allows you to enroll multiple persons or multiple entities at one time. Right? The bulk process, again, allows you to manage various EDGAR accounts. The SEC provides a CSV file, a template that you can download from their system, actually complete that and upload that for the bulk enrollment. We will go through those steps, right? So the SEC only allows or only accepts 100 rows of entries per bulk form, per bulk enrollment. So the header of that form is actually considered an entry. So the form actually only allows up to 99 accounts or CIKs to be included in the form. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. So now on the enrollment page, so once you create your account and or log into sec.gov, and on your dashboard, you're going to scroll down to the EDGAR Next enrollment options. That is actually the same option that Nikki showed you for the manual process. But there, instead of selecting the manual enrollment, you will click on the bulk enrollment option. Before doing that, you will need to download the CSV template and actually complete that template, and we'll go through what some of that looks like. But you'll need to go through, complete that template. Once the template is completed, we'll then go back and upload the form for processing. So, and also looking at this page, it gives you some guidance as to what's required, knowing that you need your current CIK, CCC, the passphrase, again, the name, address, enroll for your account administrators. All of that information is required in the template itself. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, so completing the form. Again, this is an example of what some of the information looks like in the form. Again, it is the same information. You want to make sure that you have your email addresses, you have your account administrators, your addresses. You want to make sure that all of your information is correct. Now, a difference is in the manual process for the single member company, to indicate a single member company, you're only answering yes or no. In the bulk enrollment form, it is a little different. It is asking you for a single member entity. You must enter the number 1. For operating companies or other companies, you want to enter the number 0. And for individual filers, in your Section 16 filers, you are entering NA. So that is the one item where the information you're entering will read a little differently. Okay. Our next slide, please. Okay, so now you've gone through, you've completed your form, and you're ready to upload it. Once you upload your form, when uploading your form, the system is actually validating your information. So if information entered in the form is not completed, let's say there's a field missing, or the CIK is not valid, it's got to be a CIK, a valid CIK. If that's not valid, it is going to come back as an error. So you'll see this error message on the side. Now the error message will actually tell you or show you the number of errors found when uploading. And then it provides a link to a file that actually gives you a full description of the errors found. So when that happens, you'll need to go back, make any adjustments or edits in all edits needed or required in your document, save that, and then re-upload it again. And so then when you go back and re-upload it, as long as you have a successful upload, then you will receive a new message saying that it was a success, right? You'll then receive an email notification and a notification in the dashboard for your enrollments. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, so after you've enrolled, you'll be able to go into your dashboard, log into your dashboard, and view that entity. So under My Accounts, you'll be able to view the entities that you just enrolled. You can click on the company name. So if you click on the link for the company name, that is going to open up the page where you can actually see your account details, your annual confirmation, and other information that is associated with that account. So in clicking on account details, that is going to show you all of your filer information. So your credentials, your CIK and CCC, your confirmation date, and then also your business address. So you can go in, view that information at any time. Your CCC is always viewable in your dashboard. So you can always go back and verify that and confirm what that information is. Okay. Also for co-registrants. So if you are an entity that files with multiple co-registrants, your co-registrants will need to enroll in EDGAR Next. They aren't required to have a role assigned to them as an administrator or a user, but they are required to enroll in EDGAR Next. Okay. Next page. All right, and now we will turn it over to Jennifer for tips and lessons learned. Thank you.
Hello. Thanks, Angela. Thanks, Nikki. So with all that good information, I wanted to provide kind of a quick overview and hit some of the highlights of tips and tricks and the lessons that we've learned from this. So if you could move to the next slide, please. So a couple of quick overview thoughts. The communication and planning that Nikki talked about is so essential to successfully prepare and comply for EDGAR Next. To plan for successful enrollment, you really need to do some work on the front end, and then that will really improve your experience in enrollment and delegation once we finally reach the point of filing. So you want to reach out to your filing agents, your service providers to determine what is specific. The SEC has very specific requirements in EDGAR Next to ensure that there's filing authority to submit filings and with use of the tokens, but there's some flexibility in how to implement that, which delegation helps with. So that's why you want to have a conversation with each one to ensure that you're prepared and know what they need from you. So determine when to enroll and what delegation is needed, because again, that can vary, and you want to enroll during a quiet period. Avoid enrolling during filing deadlines. We've seen a couple of situations where another company has enrolled a director and that other company had a Form 4. They didn't realize they'd been enrolled and they weren't able to submit their Form 4. They were receiving a suspension, so it caused a last-minute scramble. So that's part of the reason why this is so important. As Nikki mentioned, beginning September 15th, 2025, all filers must be enrolled to continue filing on EDGAR. So that date is really important. I know we've heard some people say, we're going to hold off until our Q2 10Qs are filed in August and then enroll. So this is going to be a very busy time as we're working through August filings and then into September. So there may be more load on the SEC's filer management system. So just keep all of those things in mind. Next slide, please. So a couple of tips and tricks and lessons that we've learned about enrollment. As Angela was walking us through some of the delegation and Nikki was walking us through some of that enrollment. In 2019, the SEC changed their format for how they managed passwords. And so that caused any codes since then to need to be reset as part of EDGAR Next. So particularly that passphrase, it's only generated during that Form ID process when you receive codes. So many people don't have that anymore. The SEC has a really helpful process to be able to go in. The button's a little bit buried, but you're in filer management. And we have documentation we can share on that. When you go into filer management, there's a little blue button that says reset passphrase. You do need to have access to the point of contact email for that, but that is easy to update if you have a valid CIK and CCC. So that accurate CIK, valid CCC, and passphrase are essential to enrollment. So watch for common bulk enrollment filing errors. The SEC has very specific instructions. And one common error we're seeing quite a bit is for the country code. It's X1 for the United States, for the administrator's country. And every CIK, as was mentioned, requires at least 2 administrators, except for individual filers. So all of your officers and directors, they're only required to have 1 account administrator, but think about those directors who sit on multiple boards, and every company needs to have access to them in some way. So you'll want to take that into account as you're planning. And again, every officer and director that reports with multiple companies, you'll need to be in contact with the other companies and ensure that you have access, whatever level that is determined to be. And every CIK can only enroll once, as was discussed. So you'll want to just keep that in mind and ensure whoever is enrolling them, you know ahead of time, and so that you can manage your officers and directors who report with other companies. So prior enrollment, that coordination is really critical. Another piece of that is to determine what role, as we were walking through those different roles, administrators and users and delegated users, kind of determine what role you'll have related to the accounts that you're connected to. And the CCC changes upon enrollment. It is possible to revert it back. The SEC provides an option to do that. But again, if you have multiple reporting entities, officers and directors with multiple companies, that can be an issue. So again, everyone who has access to that filer in filer management in some capacity means that they can see their codes and everyone is aware and can manage those filings. Next slide, please. Right. A few other items we've noticed related to delegation are really helpful to note. So during delegation, there is an option. This is for both manual and the bulk enrollment that Angela described. And during that, there is an option to allow delegation requests. That means that any entity can send you a delegation request. So that allows that CIK to file on your behalf. That request must be reviewed and approved by an account administrator. So we highly suggest enabling that. It just means that you can receive those delegation requests from any entity who files on your behalf. And there is an option to have auto accept delegation. That's primarily designed for filing agents. That's something you can enable or disable at any point on the filer management dashboard. And that will ensure that there's no unintended delegation. And just to reiterate, delegation is from one CIK, from one filer to another CIK. And so that provides authority under the EDGAR Next final rule to be able to submit filings on behalf of that filer. And as was described, there are kind of two pieces to that that are really critical. The SEC requires a filer token and requires a user token in combination to be able to submit the filing. So that delegation does provide authority to be able to file on behalf of a filing agent or another entity. So that delegated authority might include filing agents, issuers, law firms, broker-dealers, for example, if they file 144s on your behalf. So consider all those and keep that as part of your planning. All right, next slide, please. And lastly, the SEC created the filer management dashboard, which replaced the previous website, and this requires login.gov credentials to access. It's open now, and all new Form ID applications and EDGAR code management must be performed there. So if you have to reset a password between now and September 12th, that has to be done there. If you need to reset your passphrases for enrollment, it needs to be done there. So you do need login.gov access for anything related to submitting a Form ID, accessing accounts as part of EDGAR Next, or code management. And a few other items related to the Form ID. We are hearing about significant delays from the SEC because of the number of requests they're getting with new filers and amended Form IDs related to EDGAR Next enrollment. So the SEC does have a backlog of requests. We're hearing at some points up to 2 weeks right now for approval of a new Form ID request. So that new Form ID does require some information related to securities law violations. New filers at this point are automatically enrolled in EDGAR Next. The application requires account administrator information. And so that means that they'll be automatically enrolled, which is another positive step for any new filers that you have. And with EDGAR Next, the SEC, as I mentioned, is experiencing that significant backlog of Form IDs. So really plan ahead if you have a new filer and you need to submit a Form 3. And the EDGAR password will become obsolete September 15th. So that need to log in to the EDGAR filing website and other online forms will be replaced with login.gov credentials. Right. And lastly, I want to just highlight some items related to managing officers and directors. We talked about some of these. It's helpful to have in just one slide. So again, if an officer or director reports with another board, you need to be aware of the EDGAR Next requirements and plan who will enroll the filer and when, and hopefully during a quiet period. Officers and directors do not require their own EDGAR Next login.gov access unless they plan to manage their own EDGAR account. So as with today, most officers and directors will have someone manage their accounts for them. Some may have their own account access if they want to, that's fine. And a reminder that the CCC changes on enrollment, so that can cause an issue for another filer. Just be aware of that. And if it needs to be reverted or information shared, or someone have access as an administrator or a user from another company. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, Nikki, and Angela. We do have about 5 minutes to answer a number of questions that have come in. And so I want to ask everybody to kind of bring their videos back on again, and we'll just run through these and see, to as many as we can. Okay, the first question I see here, and we did get a question about slides, and we will be posting the slides and also making the replay from the program available to everyone. That'll be posted sometime in the next few days. So the first question, what is the process for requesting a new passphrase if we are not able to locate the EDGAR contact? Does anybody here feel comfortable responding to that one?
I can, Michelle. Oh, I'm sorry, Angela, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're fine.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
So if you don't know the POC contact, it is really helpful if you can try to find out. Usually, if you try to request a passphrase reset, you'll get a little pop-up in the filer management dashboard that gives you what the email address is with several asterisks. So it obscures part of the email, but you might be able to guess or deduce what that email address is from the pop-up. If you can't, if you have a valid CIK and CCC and the filer is not enrolled yet, then you can log into the EDGAR filer website and update the contact email. And then the SCC will send a token to that email address on file so that you can then generate a new passphrase.
Great, thank you. Okay, the next question, how do you remove the old EDGAR contact, not the new account administrator? Anybody feel comfortable with that one? These are all very, very specific questions we're getting here.
Yeah, so you're saying remove the old EDGAR contacts, that's contact in the dashboard or contact in their company database. In the dashboard, you can go in and there's an option for you to remove an individual if you like. But if you're looking to actually update the contact, then you'll need to log into the filer management site and log into your company database and update your contact information.
Okay, thank you. And this may be kind of the same question. Is there a way to change the point of contact email if you no longer have access to an old point of contact email? Is that kind of the same question, Angela?
Yes, that is the same. You would need to log into the filer management site and then go in and update your company database with that new information.
And one further point that if you do not have access at all, no valid CCC, and you can't update the POC contact email, this is pre-enrollment, then the last step, and it is best to try to find out the contact if you can, because your last resort is an amended Form ID, and you would select the option that says lost access. And that would mean you'd have to go through the process of essentially what's a Form ID for an existing CIK. And that means you have to have it signed and notarized and wait for the SEC to approve it. So it really behooves you, if you can, to try to find that contact email.
Okay, great. And I think we'll just go through two more questions here because we're up on the top of the hour here. Is there a way to sign up multiple users, do a bulk user invite after the initial enrollment?
I'm sorry, repeat that question again.
Is it possible to sign up multiple users to do a bulk user invite after the initial enrollment?
So this is okay, so it sounds like adding multiple or enrolling multiple after you've already created your account. I mean, you can use
Maybe
enrollment
after the initial enrollment period. After the enrollment period has ended, is it possible to?
After enrollment period is ended, then you'll need to submit an amended Form ID.
Okay.
So once you can no longer go in and use the enrollment period in the dashboard, you'll need to complete a Form ID, and that does not allow for bulk enrollment.
Okay. Okay, so we're gonna do, Jennifer, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add to that one, or?
I did, just really quickly. I think the question may be related to the filer management dashboard allows certain bulk actions on certain pages, or you can select more than one thing at a time and do the same action. I think the question is asking if you can add multiple users. Please clarify after the fact if that's not the question. And no, you need to go in, and when you add an individual under a CIK as an administrator, you need to add each one and select them, because you have to enter a name and their type of role, if they're an administrator or a user. There is an option for what are called user groups, but that's a different functionality than adding an individual under a specific CIK. So let us know if that wasn't your specific question.
Okay, great. Thank you. And we're actually at the end of our time here. So I want to thank, our speakers for doing an amazing job and covering a lot of territory. And thank you everyone for attending. We will review the questions that have been submitted and see what we can do about getting answers back to you. I also want to mention that we do have some additional events coming up. As you can see here on the screen, we have our online conference, GovFin 2025, which is coming up next week. This is primarily for a local government audience. But we also have a webinar on climate disclosure unpacked, navigating the changing regulatory landscape with confidence. This is coming up on August 7th, and that is a 90-minute webinar. And we encourage everybody in the SEC filing area to join us for that one. And again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining. Thank you so much, Nikki and Jennifer and Angela. You did an amazing job, and we will get back to the people who sent in questions and try to get them answers. Thank you very much, and please join us at our next webinar and at our other events coming up soon. Thank you.